Now let us discuss the other parts of the urinary system. The kidneys open into the ureters through the renal pelvis. Each ureter is approx 25 centimeter long and open into the urinary bladder. The urinary bladder stores the urinary temporarily. It is a muscular and elastic organ. Urine leaves the urinary bladder via urethra, through which urine is discharged. Urine leaves the urinary bladder via the urethra. Urethra has external and internal urethral sphincter which controls the flow of urine from urinary bladder to outside. Urethra along with urinary bladder, ureters and kidneys constitute human excretory system. Kidneys are the primary excretory organs. It is primarily function is the formation of urine. Urine formation involves three main processes, namely glomerular filtration, reabsorption, and secretion that takes place in different parts of the nephron. The first step in the urine formation is the filtration of blood, which is carried out by the glomerulus and is called glomerular filtration. On an average, now this the glomerular capillary blood pressure causes filtration of blood through three layers: the endothelium of glomerular blood vessels, the epithelium of the Bowman's capsule, and a basement membrane between these two layers. The epithelial cells of the Bowman capsules, called podocytes, are arranged in an intricate manner so as to leave some minute spaces called filtration slits or slit pores. Blood is filtered so finely through these membranes that almost all the constituents of the plasma except the protein pass on to the lumen of the Bowman's capsule. Therefore, it is considered as the process of ultrafiltration. On an average, 1100 to 1200 ml of blood is filtered by the kidney per minute, which constitute roughly one-fifth of the blood pumped out by each ventricle of the heart in a minute. The amount of filtrate formed by the kidney per minute is called glomerular filtration rate. This is GFR. GFR is in a healthy individual is approx 125 ml per minute, that is 180 liters per day. The kidney have built-in mechanism for the regulation of glomerular filtration rate. One such efficient mechanism is carried out by juxtaglomerular apparatus, JGA. JGA is a special sensitive region formed by the cellular modification of the distal convoluted tubule and the afferent arteriole at the location of their contact. A fall in JFR can activate the JG cells to release renin, which can stimulate the glomerular blood flow and thereby the GFR back to normal. A comparison of the volume of the filtrate formed by the per day, that is 180 liters per day, with that of the urine released, that is 1.5 liters, suggests that nearly 99% of the filtrate has to be reabsorbed by the renal tubules. This process is called reabsorption. The tubular epithelial cells in different segments of the nephron performs this either by active or passive mechanism. For example, substances like glucose, amino acids, sodium ion, etc. in the filtrate are reabsorbed actively, whereas the nitrogenous waste are absorbed by the passive transport. Reabsorption of water also occurs passively in the initial segment of the nephron. During urine formation, the tubular cells secrete substances like hydrogen ion, potassium ion, and ammonia into the filtrate. Tubular secretion is also an important step in the urine formation as it helps in the maintenance of ionic and acid base balance of the body fluids. Now let us the function of the tubules. Proximal convoluted tubules, that is PCT, is lined by the simple cuboidal brush border epithelium which increases the surface area for reabsorptions. Nearly all the essential nutrients and 70 to 80% of the electrolytes and water are reabsorbed by this segment. PCT also helps to maintain the pH and ionic balance of the body fluid by selective secretion of hydrogen ions, ammonia, and potassium ions into the filtrate and by the absorption of hydrogen carbonate from it. Next is the Henle loop. Reabsorption is minimum in its ascending limb. However, the region plays a significant role in the maintenance of high osmolarity of the medullary interstitial fluid. The descending limb of the loop of the Henle is permeable to water but almost impermeable to electrolytes. This concentrates the filtrate as it moves down. The ascending limb is impermeable to water but allows transport of electrolytes actively or passively. Therefore, as the concentrated filtrate passes upward, it gets diluted due to the passage of electrolytes to the medullary fluid. And next is the distal convoluted tubule, that is DCT. Convoluted reabsorption of sodium ion and water takes place in this segment. DCT is also capable of reabsorption of hydrogen carbonate and selective secretion of hydrogen and potassium ions and NH3 to maintain the pH and sodium potassium balance in blood. And last is the collecting duct. This long duct extends from the cortex of the kidney to the inner part of the medulla. Large amount of water could be reabsorbed from this region to provide a concentrated urine. This segment allows passage of a small amount of urea into the medullary interstitium to keep up the osmolarity. It also plays a role in the maintenance of pH and ionic balance of the blood by selective secretion of hydrogen ion and potassium ions. Now discuss the mechanism of concentration of the filtrate. Mammals have the ability to produce a concentrated urine. The Henle's loop and the vasa recta plays a significant role in this. The flow of filtrate in the two limbs of the Henle's loop is in opposite directions and thus the forms a counter current. The flow of blood through the two limbs of the vasa recta is also in a counter current pattern. The proximity between the Henle's loop and the vasa recta as well as the counter current in them help in maintaining and increasing osmolarity towards the inner medullary interstitium, that is from 300 m osmolarity per liter in the cortex to about 1200 m osmolarity per liter in the inner medulla. This gradient is mainly caused by the NaCl and the urea. Sodium chloride is transported by the ascending limb of the Henle's loop, which is exchanged with the descending limb of the vasa recta. NaCl is returned to the interstitium by the ascending portion of the vasa recta. Similarly, a small amount of urea, either the thin segment of the ascending limb of the Henle's loop, which is transported back to the interstitium by the collecting tubule. The above described transport of substances facilitated by a special arrangement of Henle's loop and vasa recta is called the counter-current mechanism. This mechanism helps to maintain a concentration gradient in the medullary interstitium. Percentage of such interstitial gradient helps in an easy passage of the water from the collecting tubule, thereby concentrating the filtrate. Human kidney can produce urine nearly 4 times concentrated than the initial filtrate form. Now discuss the regulation of kidney function. The function of the kidney is effectively monitored and regulated by the hormonal feedback mechanism involving the hypothalamus, JGA, and to a certain extent the heart. Osmoreceptors in the body are activated by the changes in blood volume, body fluid volume, and the ionic concentration. And excessive loss of fluid from the body can activate these receptors, which stimulate the hypothalamus to release antidiuretic hormone, that is ADH, or vasopressin from the neurohypophysis. ADH facilitates water reabsorption from the latter parts of the tubule, thereby preventing diuresis. An increase in body fluid volume can switch off the osmoreceptors and suppress the ADH release to complete the feedback. ADH can also affect the kidney function by its constrictory effect on the blood vessels. This causes an increase in blood pressure. An increase in blood pressure can increase the glomerular blood flow and thereby the GFR. The JGA play a complex regulatory role. A fall in glomerular blood flow or glomerular blood pressures, that is GFR, can activate the JG cells to release renin, which converts angiotensinogen in blood to angiotensin 1 and further to angiotensin 2. Angiotensin 2, being a powerful vasoconstrictor, increases the glomerular blood pressures and thereby GFR. Angiotensin 2 also activates the adrenal cortex to release aldosterone. Aldosterone causes reabsorption of sodium ion and water from the distal part of the tubule. This also leads to an increase in blood pressure and GFR. This complex mechanism is generally known as the renin-angiotensin mechanism. An increase in blood flow to the atria of the heart can cause the release of atrial natriuretic factor ANF. ANF can cause vasodilation or dilation of blood vessels and thereby decrease the blood pressures. ANF mechanism therefore acts as a check on the renin anti-angiotensin mechanism. Now discuss the micturition. Urine formed by the nephrons is ultimately carried to the urinary bladder, where it is stored till a voluntary signal is given by the central nervous system. This signal is initiated by the stretching of the urinary bladders as it gets filled with the urine. In response, the stretch is receptor on the wall of the bladder sends signal to the CNS. This is the ANF, atrial natriuretic factor. ANF can cause dilation of the blood vessels and thereby decrease the blood pressures. ANF mechanism therefore acts as a check on the renin angiotensin mechanism. The CNS passes on the motor messages to initiate the concentration of the smooth muscles of the bladder and simultaneously relaxation of the urethral sphincter causing the release of urine. The process of release of urine is called the micturition, and the neural mechanism causing it is called the micturition reflex. An adult human excretes on average 1 to 1.5 liters of urine per day. The urine form is a slightly yellow colored watery fluid which is slightly acidic. pH is 6.0 and has a characteristic odor. On an average, 25 to 30 gram of urea is excreted out per day. Various conditions can affect the characteristics of the urine. Analysis of urine helps in clinical diagnosis of many metabolic disorders as well as the malfunctioning of the kidneys. For example, presence of glucose, that is called glycosuria, and the ketone bodies is called ketonuria in urine are the indicative of diabetes mellitus. Now discuss the different disorder of the excretory system. Malfunctioning of the kidneys can lead to accumulation of urea in the blood. A condition is called uremia. In this diagram, you are showing the presence of glucose in urine is called glycosuria, and presence of ketone is called ketonuria. The urine are indicative of diabetes mellitus. And malfunction of the kidney can lead to accumulation of urea in blood is a condition called uremia, which is highly harmful and may lead to kidney failure. In such patient, urea can be removed by a process called hemodialysis. During the process of hemodialysis, the blood drained from a convenient artery is pumped into a dialyzing unit called artificial kidney. Blood drained from a convenient artery is pumped into a dialyzing unit after adding an anticoagulant like heparin. The unit contains a coiled cellophane tube surrounded by a fluid, that is dialyzing fluid, having the same components as that of the plasma except the nitrogenous waste. The porous cellophane membranes of the tube allows the passage of molecules based on concentration gradients. As nitrogenous wastes are absent in the dialyzing fluid, these substances freely move out, thereby clearing the blood. The clear blood is pumped back to the body through a vein after adding antiheparin to it. This method is a boon for thousands of uremic patients all over the world. Now, the kidney transplantation is the ultimate method in the correction of the acute renal failure or kidney failures. A functioning kidney is used in the transplantation from a donor, preferably a close relative, to minimize its chances of rejections by the immune system of the host. Modern clinical procedures have increased the success rate of such a complicated techniques, and renal calculi, stones or insoluble mass of crystalline salts, oxalates, it is formed within the kidney, and glomerulonephritis is the inflammation of glomeruli of kidney. These are the some of the disorders of the excretory system. So renal calculi and the glomerular neuropheritis. So now, thank you very much. Have a good day.